We have another great shocking trade out there to report. That is Jimmy Butler is going to the Golden State Warriors as part of the huge NBA trade deadline. We already saw Luka and AD moved. Now let's get into the 5-team deal that we saw just get across the wire there. Jimmy Butler goes from the Miami Heat for a huge trade haul. First, the Golden State Warriors are giving up several players and a protected 2025 pick. Let's get into it. Let me pull up X for you guys so we can pull up all the details. Alright, so Shams was the guy who broke all the news anyway, and that kind of set things in motion. The original deal sounded like it was going to be a 3-team deal, so I had originally made a video for that already, and then we finally get the rest of the details. Utah and Toronto ultimately were in this deal as well. Now it sounds like there's a 6th team in here. What the heck is going on? Maybe it isn't just a 5-team deal after all. Not sure what the 6th team is. Tim Reynolds is just saying there might be a 6th team here. But the deal itself is going to send Dennis Schroeder is going to end up going to Utah. Kyle Anderson is going to end up going to Toronto. Andrew Wiggins is going to end up in Miami, along with PJ Tucker from Utah. First-round pick from Golden State will also end up in Miami. Now, Golden State is going to, of course, have Jimmy Butler. The Detroit Pistons are picking up Lindy Waters and Josh Richardson in this deal, and it sounds like there might be more people involved in this deal as well. So let me update the page and just see if they've named that 6th team. Jake Fisher, my understanding is that the Warriors and Heat agreed to the initial swap of players for Jimmy Butler, and it's been Miami's business since then rerouting the other players. Makes sense. I like this tweet anyway. Now there might be no other place for KD to go besides Dallas or stay in Phoenix. Honestly, I think that's kind of the case right now. I think he just stays there, though. Trying to see what the 6th team is. I do not see the mention of the 6th team. Source, PJ has wanted back since he left. He's talking about PJ Tucker. Let's talk a little bit about the contract extension, though. 2 years for $121 million for a guy who's 35-ish years old and looks a little bit older than that. He plays very differently than the way the modern NBA is played. I will say that. He's kind of an old-school type of a player. Goes to the rim pretty much every single chance he can. Doesn't shoot a whole lot of threes. But his true shooting percentage does say he's still pretty effective at those things. My question is, once the defense starts getting played a little bit better in the playoffs, Is he the type of player that can rise above that more than, say, some of the modern NBA players, where he can deal with the contact because he's been dealing with it all year? Or does the contact become to wear too much on him? Now, Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors were looking for a way to upgrade their roster, some way to get a star player next to Steph Curry, and they finally have done so. KD basically saying earlier today that no, I don't have any interest in being traded, and I certainly don't have interest in going back to Golden State. Sounds like he will be staying in Phoenix. There are a couple of teams with interest anyway if he decides to accept a trade somewhere. Dallas is waiting on the periphery. Houston says they're just wanting to keep this team together, go through a postseason, and see how this roster looks before they make any decisions. But it's kind of interesting to see what happens there. You're saying Alex Bregman just signed? Let's see. No. Bregman did not sign. Nice try there, Paul. Let's go back over to our basketball page here. Scotto, once the Golden State Warriors finalize the Jimmy Butler acquisition, the team is expected to convert two-way Quentin Post into an NBA contract. Okay. I like this tweet from Stein. Since about midnight on Sunday, we've seen Jimmy Butler go to the Warriors, Wiggins to the Heat, Kuzma to the Bucks, Middleton to the Wizards, Fox to the Spurs, LaVine to the Kings, Davis to the Mavericks, and of course Luka Doncic to the Los Angeles Lakers. Yeah, this is kind of crazy, the number of big deals that we're seeing here. Let's go back on this post. We don't need to go through their comment section. There's your new big three in the Bay. I kind of like this picture. The blue really pops on that one. But Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler, and of course Draymond Green, your big three there. Still waiting to see who the sixth team could be. No news in his little thread there. So let us know if you guys find out who that sixth team is going to be. So the teams that are included in this deal, we'll kind of start it from the top anyway. Golden State, Miami, Utah, Detroit, and Toronto. Just an incredible trade deadline. This is just a great way to start our live that we're going to have tomorrow, covering the NBA trade deadline. We'll probably start a little bit earlier based off of all the crazy transactions we've seen. Welcome back, Sarah. Been a minute since I've seen you. Appreciate you joining us once again. Thank you very much. Cowboys Nation, welcome in. Rafe, Ryan, 2 years, 121 is ridiculous. I would agree. I think he's past his prime. But I guess that's what you got to do if you're Golden State, if you're trying to convince him to sign there long-term, is give him that Brinks truck there, and they certainly did that. Really surprising with the ratings. Crazy to give a 35-year-old $61 million a year. Agree. If Jimmy is worth that, Luka will be worth 80. If Jimmy is worth 61 per, then you're looking at Luka Doncic right now in the league, probably worth, I wouldn't say quite double that, but I would say a lot closer to double than 80. But either way, you still have max contracts in the NBA. You're never going to exceed those. Rafe Butler going to make $60 million more in 1 year than I would have had in 30 years of life. I think that goes for a lot of us, Rafe. Jonathan, good night. This is one of the most active trade deadlines that NBA has had in a while, but 2 years, 100+ million for a head case like Jimmy Butler, and his decline is just crazy. I would agree there. Rafe, you would give him 3 for 120, and I would have said, holy God, holy good for him. But y'all gave him 2 for 121. Yeah, I would have said 40 million would have been a lot for Jimmy Butler, but 61 million? Oof. I mean, I guess Joe Lacob has all kinds of deep pockets out there in Silicon Valley, but my goodness, that's a lot of money to put on a depreciating asset there in Jimmy Butler there. Let's see here. Jimmy can't win big games. He's not worth $60 million a year. I think he gives a different element to Golden State. I will say that much. But he is certainly a declining player. Can we give Phoenix like 150 Subway sandwiches and a new car for KD? No, unfortunately not. But this is indeed wild. Edgar, welcome in. Appreciate you joining us once again. Knicks need a center and a shooting guard. They have made Jericho Sims available. I kind of floated the idea of maybe a trade with Gafford and Klay Thompson going to the New York Knicks, but there's no way they'd be able to afford both of those pieces in trade. Understandably, they have Mitchell Robertson in trade, but There's nobody else that would be of interest anyway, and I don't think Dallas would think that's an upgrade over Gafford anyway. They're still trying to win right now. Sarah, I'm a Boston fan. I love my Celtics since the Bird days. I would say you've had a good run of success there. 90 plus Luka for me. I agree. Luka is going to be a huge contract. Nowhere near as much as it should have been with the Dallas Mavericks. Dallas could have signed him to a 5-year, $345 million contract. Now the Lakers can only give him 4 for $229. You tell me, is $120 million more worth it to stay in Dallas? Just saying. Let's see here. Cowboys Nation. Fox going off in his San Antonio debut. Not surprising there. I think that's actually going to work out quite well. They gave $60 million a year, but they won't get Luke a big deal. Let's see here. Lakers need a big man. I'll agree with you there, Justin. I was kind of floating the idea earlier during our live about Jonas Valanciunas being a great fit there. Maybe you could only get him for a second-round pick and Maxi Kleba. Ultimately, right when we're discussing it, he gets traded to the Sacramento Kings for 2 second-round picks. Kind of surprising to see that one go through. Let's go ahead and update the page and just see if we have any updates as far as who that 6th team is going to be. There's the new threads for both of those guys. I don't really like these Miami Heat uniforms. Like, I get it, it's Miami Vice type of a feel, but no, get it out of here. Golden State looks a lot fresher, a lot cleaner right next to it. Impact in Golden State. Players under contract 11 below the apron, 1.8 if Butler waives his trade bonus. The Warriors can fill out the roster and remain below the first apron. However, the timing of each signing is critical. Sounds like they could do a whole bunch of vet minimums or low salary guys and vet minimum type of moves that they could do to kind of fill out their roster, according to Bobby Marks. Still waiting to see what the actual 6th team is in this one. Tim Reynolds, the reporter for the AP, has said there's a 6th team involved. Again, Andrew Wiggins, P.J. Tucker go to Miami along with a first-round pick. Schroeder ends up with the Utah Jazz. I'm sure there's a second-round pick involved in this deal as well. Sarah, I love the Fox and Wemby pairing. I do too. The question is, do you view Fox as a number 2 on a championship team, or do you view him as a number 3? I think by keeping Castle, they have the flexibility to still add a number 2 next to Wemby and have Fox be the 3. But I wonder if Fox is still the same player we thought he was when he first came out of college. We thought he was the institutional leader, that he'd be a great guy on the floor, a disciple of the coach on the floor, an extension of the coach, if you will. And we saw the issues that he had with Mike Brown. Now, Fox and his camp has basically come out and said, no, we weren't actually trying to get Mike Brown fired. We were just fine with him. How dare you guys, label us with that? And for whatever the case may be, Fox was part of the reason he was gone. His failure to execute on the floor is part of the reason why Mike Brown was gone. Even that last game that we saw, kind of failing to close out or closing out on a 3-point shooter and fouling him with a 4-point lead. Just not very smart anyway, and costing the Kings that game. But we'll see if Fox works out with Wemby. I think it'll work great. But the question is, are they a championship team with Fox as the number 2? I still think they'll need to add somebody else along with Wemby to really get this thing across the finish line. Somewhere down the line, anyway. I like the low-key move that OKC did today, getting Daniel Tice. To me, that's more of a contract that the Pelicans needed to offload. It's basically a $20 million decision by the Pelicans to trade a minimum salary in Daniel Tice to dip underneath the tax threshold, because now they can get part of that revenue sharing anyway, the dispersal anyway of the teams that are over the tax. They will get around $14.4 million, but that number figures to go up and down during the trade deadline as more teams dip into the tax and more teams try to play gymnastics to dip underneath. Miami, for instance, is dipping underneath the apron anyway. We'll see if they get all the way underneath the tax. But as far as the move itself, the player, they needed some size on this team. Tice is a smaller big, but they do need some size on this team, and he does fill that role for them at a minimum salary, not having to do anything else for it. Kind of a nice move for them. Justin, do you think Lakers will make a next trade? I think they'll make a trade. Do I think they'll make the next one? Probably not. Maybe they go out there and get a Mo Bamba as far as a signing, bring in some size to this team. I like the Jackson Hayes as a part of this team. I would hate to see him go out the door in their search for another big man. But I think they'll use Maxi Kleber's contract to try to bring in another big man, maybe a guy like Marvin Bagley, maybe a Kelly Olynyk, somebody along those lines is what I would expect if I'm in LA country. Maybe if they go bigger game hunting, maybe they contact the Dallas Mavericks once again and see if they can get Daniel Gafford out of there and maybe have a 3-team trade there, because I don't think the Lakers have what the Mavericks are looking for via trade. Sounds like the Mavericks had identified Christie and Anthony Davis as the 2 pieces they want. Ultimately, I don't think it was nearly enough for Luka, but those were the pieces they identified they want, and understandably, those are good assets. I just think they should have gotten a lot more for Luka. But I do think the Lakers will add a center. Rafe, I think $35 million for Butler would have been a good for Butler, and the Warriors are trying to win, so it's fair, but nearly doubled that per year. Good Lord, I would agree with that one. I mean, it's a huge overpay, but if you're the Warriors, I mean, you're looking for a star. Butler had said he was not willing to go to Golden State, and inevitably, they were able to convince him to do so by giving him that much money. Let's go ahead and scroll up here and see if anything else is coming through. Still waiting to see what the last team in this deal is. As many could guess, Kevin Durant is staying with the Suns past the trade deadline. League sources confirmed. Sounds about right. But there is still plenty of time left. Who knows? Here's the odds. Warriors titles before adding Butler, almost 20,000 to 1. Wow. Warriors titles after trading for Butler, still plus 3,000, but they're still a better team than they were. For instance, the Mavericks made the trade of Luka Doncic for Anthony Davis. Their odds actually went down, so I still think they're going to be looking for a playmaker, a scorer here at the deadline. I'm expecting them to have at least one more significant trade in them before we get to the deadline tomorrow. Still no update on who that 6th team is. Maybe it is just a 5-team trade. Only 18 more hours for Mavs to look it up even more? Well, maybe. Let's see, Jonathan, this Butler trade doesn't move the needle one bit. This trade would have worked if Curry, Draymond, and Jimmy were in their primes, but they're now aged vets. This only secures a playoff berth. That's it. I'm not even sure it secures a playoff berth. To me, this might get you into the play-in, but outside of that, I don't think it pushes you over the top. Now, like I said, this does change the floor dynamics for them. He's a very different type of a player. Steph Curry has had a lot of difficulty playing with the group that he's had around him this year. I think he kind of misses having the running mate in Klay Thompson, at least when he was at his peak. Klay nowadays is not the same Klay that it was, say, 3 years ago. But just looking at this Golden State roster, who would you say they're better than? Just even with the addition of Jimmy Butler. Are they better than Oklahoma City? No. Let me go ahead and pull this the standings up here real quick. If our page will reload. Okay. On the Western Conference side of things, this is probably about a week old as far as the standings anyway, but just for reference, are they better than Oklahoma City with their roster? No. Are they better than Houston? I would say there's a chance because of the inexperience there in Houston. Grizzlies, I would say they have a good chance to beat them, the inexperience there of a lot of the young guys there. But again, it's Ja Morant. Denver, are they better than them? Even with the issues Denver has, I'd still say Denver is better. So that's 2 definitively better than Golden State. Lakers with Luka and LeBron, I think they'll add a center, and even with whoever they bring in, even if it's just a stopgap option there, I think that the Lakers are a better team on paper, even with Draymond, Steph Curry, and Jimmy Butler. The big 2 of Luka and LeBron outweighs that of Steph, Draymond, and Jimmy Butler for me. Clippers, I'd say they have a better overall team as far as the sum of the pieces working together. Do I think that the talent will work out in the postseason? Probably not. I think the moment might shine a little too bright, and so I'd say Golden State probably a little bit ahead of the Clippers. So we have 3 teams that I have ahead of Golden State so far. Minnesota, they haven't been able to get out of their own way so far this year. I think they're still trying to work with Randall. Now he's going to miss a little bit of time, so it's going to be even more of an issue as they still try to work this thing out. But, I mean, it's Ant Edwards, it's Rudy Gobert. Gobert gives Golden State some issues at times, but Ant Edwards is the real deal. As the season goes along, I'd expect them to iron out some of their issues working in Randall and some of the other pieces that they've had difficulty with this year. But I would say the Timberwolves are just a hair better, but that one's one of the closer ones that we've seen so far. Phoenix, if they don't make any adjustments to their roster, if they just stick with what they have, are they a better team right now than what we see here? I don't know. For me, I would say Kevin Durant is the best piece besides Steph Curry. Well, second best. I'd say Booker is probably a little bit better. Durant probably third. I don't know, probably Jimmy 4, Beal 5, Draymond 6. But I just think the combination of Booker and Durant will be too much for Golden State to be able to handle. Even with the addition of Jimmy Butler, I think they can figure out a way to handle him. Royce O'Neal, players like that should be able to, take care of business on that side of the ball. But that's kind of where I'm headed as far as that conversation. So I'll say the Suns are a little bit better. Dallas, even as currently constructed, even with the injury risks that they have at the with Derek Lively and with Gafford, who had a stinger in his shoulder, and with Anthony Davis, as few ball handlers as they have, I still think they're a better team than Golden State, at least on paper. When we get to the playoffs, I think size will be a huge concern for Golden State, even still. And I think Jimmy Butler's going to take some time to integrate into that offense. Not saying that they couldn't do it. I just think that AD seems seamlessly fits into this offense. And while it's not going to be as dynamic as it was with Luka, they're still going to be a good team. So I'd still put them ahead of Golden State. The Kings, would I say they're better than Golden State? No. I just think there's too much inexperience there. I don't count on them in a postseason series. Give me Golden State. The last one I'll mention is the San Antonio Spurs. I just think it's still a year too early for Wemby and company, but I do like the addition of Fox. I would say the Warriors are better overall. So let's count them up. How many teams did we count? Thunder, that's 1. Nuggets, that's 2. Lakers, that's 3. T-Wolves, 4. Suns, 5. Mavs, 6. That means, at the best, in my opinion, I'd say the Warriors are in the play-in. Now, the teams that have a better record, the Rockets, the Grizzlies, the Clippers, and the Kings, at least according to this standings here, I would say probably the Rockets and Grizzlies fit higher than them in the standings, which means Golden State probably finishes no better than 9th in the standings, and that's if the Clippers take a little bit of a fall here in the second half. But I would say Golden State is a better team than they were before they made the trade for Jimmy Butler. But would I say they're vastly different than they were before? Maybe as far as stylistically, but as far as overall talent, as far as the ability to win a championship, I would say they're roughly about the same. And I know that doesn't, please Golden State fans out there, but I just don't see how this trade makes them a significantly better title hopeful than anybody else than what they were already. Alrighty, let's go over to the X and just see if anything else is happening at the moment. See if we have that 6th team yet. In what was a little bit of a surprise here, Lonzo Ball has agreed to a 2-year extension, $20 million. No surprise there that it's a decrease in his overall salary, but it's a surprise that Chicago was willing to give it to him after having that deal ultimately blow up in their faces the first time. I guess they're just once more into the breach, I guess, with Lonzo Ball and company. Let's see here. See if anything else is coming out. I'm expecting a lot of news tonight. A lot of trades in the 8 to the midnight hour. So we're going to do a short baseball live tonight around 9 o'clock. So be prepared for that one. And we'll go right back into basketball news if something big breaks tonight. So be sure to hit that like, subscribe, follow us on X and at Upside Sports Network on Facebook. And tomorrow we'll actually have a live during the NBA trade deadline. We'll probably start early in the morning anyway and go through the deadline maybe about an hour afterward. Usually about 30 minutes after is when most of those trades finally come out. There's always a flurry right before the bell, so we'll see what happens there. But Lonzo Ball, 2 years, $20 million, and Jimmy Butler, 2 years, $121 million, the two players that just got extended. And, of course, Jimmy gets traded to Golden State. All right, let's check out some of these comments here, try to catch up on a couple of them. This trade doesn't move the needle. I agree there. Got to sell tickets. Jazz need to give up Walker Kessler to the Lakers. I don't see why. I'd see the more likely piece of them trying to move right now is John Collins. He's having a great year. They should be able to get a decent price for him as well. Justin, Lakers trade got the entire NBA going crazy. Absolutely. In case you guys didn't pay attention to some of the news that was coming out after the trade for Luka happened, a lot of teams changed their travel plans as far as how they were going to fly across country, get ready for games, buses, all that kind of thing. They wanted to be out of the skies when this trade deadline happened because you don't know what's going to happen after Luka gets traded. So we saw several teams change plans where they were originally planning to be flying in the air during the trade deadline, weren't expecting it to be active. They have now made arrangements to get those flights done earlier, and so that the team isn't all on the plane and having to be stuck on a plane with a team that just traded you. So not just one team did that. There was like 8 or 9 teams that changed their travel plans as a result of the Luka AD trade. So kind of keep that in mind when you look at this trade deadline. Teams in the NBA are expecting this one to be very active after that Luka trade finally happened. Rafe, hold on. Did you see the Wizards were landing odds for KD? Yeah, okay, whatever. Is cranking on those odds, need to have their phone taken from him. The only reason why the Wizards continually get brought up for KD is because that's where he's from. They think that he wants to go back home to finish his career. That ain't happening, folks. But you can understand why the Wizards are at least an option for a lot of people that might be interested in betting on something like that. Anthony, Michael, do you think Miami got the best they could with Jimmy causing problems and him messing up his trade value? Actually, I think they did better than I expected. I did not expect him to get a 25 first-round pick because 25 is a little bit more loaded of a draft class, certainly than last year. But it's seen as one of the better draft classes in recent memory. Now, would I say it's one of the best ever? No. I would say it's still very top-heavy at the top, but it is have a little bit more depth anyway than years past, especially last year. Last year it was just an abysmal draft, but we do have a couple of decent role players with a couple of guys who might have all-star potential, but nobody who looks like a future star. Now, as far as the return for Jimmy Butler is concerned, P.J. Tucker, seen as an overpaid player, 1 year left on his deal, no value there. Andrew Wiggins, seen as a albatross of a contract, rebuilt his value a little bit this year, a decent player and younger, kind of giving you a little bit of the same thing of what Jimmy Butler does with a little bit more youth and athleticism, and you get a first-round pick out of it. I'd say you did absolutely great in the return for Jimmy Butler. Now, as far as the causing issues and that kind of a thing, I don't think that really factored into it as far as teams as their offers. Now, there wasn't a whole lot of interest in Jimmy Butler as far as giving up a first-round pick, so I think trying to get this contract extension done, Golden State's desperation to add a star next to Steph Curry, drove the price here for a first-round pick. Cowboys Nation, AD wanted out, in my opinion. He waived $6 million to make it happen. I think your Mavs actually got better on both sides of the ball. I'd say defensively they're a little bit better. I'd say offensively they're going to be a little less dynamic, but they'll still be very good. They might be more efficient than they were even with Luka, but I would say they're certainly less dynamic with having Luka at your point. I mean, he could do pretty much anything on the basketball court, even things that we never even have seen before, and we're going to see that for the next decade or so in the purple and gold there with the Lakers. But as far as the AD wanted to make this happen, I think he wanted to come to Dallas once once he realized it was a realistic opportunity. And he realized what was actually on the table here. I think he's excited to play in Dallas. I thought that wasn't the case when it originally happened. I thought for sure when this trade happened, he'd be out the door in a couple of years. Now I think he might stick around and stay for a few, maybe even take an extension and wrap up his career here with the Mavericks. But as far as AD goes, I don't think he actually wanted out. I think he wanted a setter next to him in LA, never got it, and just realized that, hey, they're willing to trade me? Okay, I'm willing to go. I don't think he was necessarily asking to leave. Anthony, I think P.J. Tucker thing is they're trading him because and possibly buying him out. I don't think he's in Miami for long after this trade. I think he will be. I think he'll stay there just fine. I don't think he'll be bought out. But Miami was looking for expiring deals. Kind of surprising to see them move on from Dennis Schroeder. Tells me that they could have just kept him and gone with, instead of going with P.J. Tucker, but maybe they just wanted to pay less. I guess that's kind of the impetus of the trade there for them. But for me, I think they actually want to keep P.J. Tucker as opposed to Dennis Schroeder. That's kind of the thing there for me. Rafe, if KD didn't care about winning and wanted to go back home, then it would make sense for him to go to the Wizards? Absolutely. He'll end up in New York before here in D.C. I'll say this. I think Kevin Durant has seen his best days come and go. Do I think we're out of the era of him trying to change teams? Probably not yet. I don't think we know which team he's going to go to yet. I don't think it'll be the Knicks. I don't think he'll take a vet minimum deal to try to win a title or chase a title. I think he'll always try to be the guy on a team, but he might be a part of a group of players like he was, like a big three in Brooklyn before it's all said and done. Rockets were in on KD. Interesting. They were, but they're wanting to see how this team plays in the playoffs before anything else, except play defense. I mean, KD's defense has decreased. I'm not sure who you're referring to here, Cowboys Nation, but KD's defense has decreased. He was once a kind of a stopper of sorts on defense. The length really was useful, but he wasn't exactly great there. Now, as far as AD, is he a defensive player of the year? Number one guy? No, that's Wembanyama, and I think it will be for the next probably decade if we're all being honest here. But I think Anthony Davis can still be an impactful defender. He wants to be kind of that free-ranging defender, a lot like Draymond Green is. That's why they have a center on the floor with Draymond. Occasionally they'll have him at the center spot. But his best role is being a disruptor, and that's what Anthony Davis wants to do defensively. He was burnt out with the LBJ run. I don't think so. I think there was a lot of pressure on him to be that next guy. Well, with LeBron still wanting to be the guy, it was kind of hard for him to pick and choose his spots. And just the fit, that 1 year in the bubble worked great that year, but it's kind of been herky-jerky to say the least. People coming in and out of the lineup, himself specifically. So you can kind of see the difficulty that he had there. Butler at 35, getting that money is insane. So when his contract over, they're going to blow up the team probably. Maybe. I mean, they've kind of got a lot of older heads on their team right now. Jimmy Butler, Draymond Green, Steph Curry. Once that group is gone, I think this is going to be a team that's trying to hold on to their picks and try to rebuild quickly through the draft. We saw the 1 year that Steph Curry was out due to injury. They got into the top half of the draft all the way up to, I believe, number 2 and got James Wiseman. That didn't work out quite as well as they had hoped, but they've tried reinventing themselves on the fly with Steph Curry, so I imagine they'll do even better without him because they'll be able to get year after year good picks at that point. And no more Bob Myers, though, to make this thing work. So we'll see if they continue to string this thing together. Anthony, I have a question. Is Miami eating some of Jimmy's contract? No, that's not a thing in the NBA. And that's affecting our salary cap for the next year for free agency because I think Fox is a free agent. Fox will be staying with the San Antonio Spurs. Rafe, I hope AD plays Thursday. I want to watch his debut. I hope he does as well, but there's a good chance he plays on Saturday instead. I think Dallas just wants to be a little precautious here with him. They're also going to have P.J. Washington out more than likely. Hopefully the deal will be done with Caleb Martin, and he'll be available to play tomorrow night. That sounds like the one guy that will be available. All right, let's check out the chat here, or the X here one more time, see if anything else is happening. I wonder what re-signing Jimmy Butler could mean for the future of Jonathan Kuminga. I think with Kuminga still being there, I think, what is he going to be, an RFA after the end of the year? I still think Golden State's going to try to keep him anyway. I don't care what the number is. I don't care what the tax bill comes to. I think they'll find a way to keep him as well. I still don't see a 6th team, so maybe Tim Reynolds was wrong about that one, but it does sound like a 5-team deal is ultimately what this thing looks like. Sounds like KD is going to stay a member of the Suns. Fox is playing great in his first game. Yes, he is. Thoughts on DeAndre Hunter to the Mavs? No, thank you. Don't want him. Not exactly a great fit for the Mavs anymore. I'd rather go with a bunch of different other wing players before I'd go after DeAndre Hunter. Now, with that being said, beggars can't be choosers. If you're looking to improve the roster, you got to do with what you can. And Hunter's been available each of the last, 3 off seasons, or 3 trade deadlines to different degrees. I think this is kind of going the way of John Collins at some point, but I don't really like the play of DeAndre Hunter anymore. His defense is a little suspect to me. I know he was originally known as a defensive guy, but he's not that to me anymore, which is why I wouldn't go after him if I were Dallas. Anthony, Michael, can you check free agency next year? Can you tell me who the stars or young superstars that'll be on RFA status that are not going to send them with our current teams? I can go through a couple of them. As far as the names off the top of my head, Kuminga comes to mind. Fox is going to be a free agent if he opts out. There's a couple of other players like Kyrie Irving could opt out and become a free agent. But as far as RFAs, most of the time RFAs stay with their teams. Occasionally you'll see another team try to poach them, but usually just like in the NHL, there's kind of an unwritten rule. Don't touch my RFAs, I won't touch yours. More so in the NHL where they really steer clear. There's compensation if you lose an RFA. There's no compensation if you lose them in the NBA. You just have the right to be able to match that contract. So with that money being tied up during that period of time while they have that time to consider whether to accept the offer or not, that can cost you from signing free agents. So that's why you really don't see too many teams try to sign RFAs away from other players unless they know for certain that there's no way they'll accept it or at least steal that player away. So kind of keep that in mind as well. How dare you insult a UVA legend? Rafe, I just saw a rumor. Never really heard of him, to be honest. For DeAndre Hunter, I mean, he's been connected to the Mavs in years past. That I'm wondering if you might have seen an old article, or maybe just the Hawks trying to generate interest in DeAndre Hunter. I did see an article this year from a Hawks source that was saying maybe they approached the Dallas Mavericks about a trade for DeAndre Hunter to give them some additional wing help. That is not the type of player the Mavericks are looking for right now, a declining player defensively. What about Ayo? He's a decent player. Mavs like athleticism. He is one of the more athletic players in the league, but I don't think that's a realistic option for Dallas. I think they're looking for somebody who can handle the ball and who can score more than anything else. Think of players like Trey Murphy. Think of players like Brandon Ingram. Think of players like, R.J. Barrett. None of those are perfect fits. I really like the idea of Trey Young, though, or Trey Murphy anyway. I think he'd be fantastic. I heard some rumors coming off of Bleacher Report, that might have been where I saw that Hawks report anyway. I've been digging around on there quite a bit the last 48 hours. Alrighty, so there's your contract situation. They're still neck and neck for BI. That was a report from earlier today. That's kind of late on that one, John Hollinger. Alrighty, we're going to go ahead and check out here. Get ready for our baseball live here in just a few minutes. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already, and join us here at the Upside. We'll be live later on this evening if we get some bigger news as well from the trade deadline. In case you guys are just joining us, Jimmy Butler is traded to the Golden State Warriors in what is for now a 5-team deal that includes the Miami Heat, Utah Jazz, Detroit Pistons, and Toronto Raptors. The Golden State Warriors, of course, get Jimmy Butler, and they extend him to a 2-year, $121 million extension. That kicks off next year, so he'll be with Golden State for the remainder of this season and 2 more years. And Golden State absolutely overpays the man. I mean, I think they had to get the deal done, but that's what happened there. Now, Miami, they're getting Andrew Wiggins out of this deal from Golden State, as well as a first-round pick, 2025, top 10 protected there. Good on them for getting a first-rounder for Jimmy Butler, given the issues that they've had off the court with him and with the interest in him around the league. Additionally, they bring in P.J. Tucker from the Utah Jazz. Utah, meanwhile, gets Dennis Schroeder. The Detroit Pistons get Lindsey Waters from the Warriors. They get Josh Richardson from the Miami Heat. And Toronto gets Kyle Anderson. Still a few more pieces being moved in that deal. I'm sure we'll get all the details later on tonight, but we'll go over them for certain tomorrow if there's no big trades tonight. But that's the big deal this evening. We saw Jonas Valanciunas go for a couple of second-round picks earlier today to the Sacramento Kings. Daniel Tice goes along with a second-round pick to the Oklahoma City Thunder as they try to dip underneath the tax. Basically saves them $1.4 million as far as spending. But the big thing for them is they dip underneath the tax threshold, which allows them to get some revenue. They'll be able to get about $14 to $15 million, depending on where things end up with the tax-paying teams. That'll be distributed among the remaining teams that did not pay into the tax. And they have never paid the tax. And on a year that's gone so poorly, they certainly weren't going to start this year. Let's see here. Do you think Ingram or George gets moved? I heard some rumors earlier today about possibly Paul George being moved. The year has not gone well there in Philadelphia. He was possibly going to be held out of the game tonight due to unknown questionable issues. Ultimately, it sounds like he's going to play. I can't remember if the game already started or not, but it sounds like he was going to play. But do I think Ingrams gets moved? 100%. Do I think George gets moved? Probably not. We're going to talk about Andrews. We'll talk a little bit about him. He'll be going into the Texas Rangers Hall of Fame. There's the Wizards' official announcement about the Valanciunas deal. One of the centers I thought would be a good fit for the Lakers ultimately gets snatched up there by the Kings. But just in case you guys want to follow us on X at UpsideSN, and on Facebook, Upside Sports Network will be live tomorrow morning breaking down all the latest from the NBA trade deadline. Join us here in about 20-30 minutes for our nightly MLB Hot Stove Daily, and we'll go over all the different deals that kind of went down today and some of the rumors that are happening as far as some trades as well as check in on Nolan Arenado. All right, we'll see you guys in about half an hour. Thank you guys for joining us. See y'all shortly.